Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Rick Barrett. I'm the director of the Rainier Writing Workshop, which is the low residency MFA here at PLU. And it's so exciting to have you here this afternoon to find out a little bit more about our terrific program, and also to give you a chance to ask some questions about who we are. And I'm really grateful that we're joined today by Alex Chacon from the Office of Admissions, who is my co-pilot for today. And I just want to thank you again for being here, taking some time out of your day to be here. So we're going to get going on the slideshow. So this slideshow is just highlighting some things about the program that perhaps you already gleaned from some of the materials that you've seen or through our website. But I just wanted to sort of like put into the foreground some really noteworthy things about us that I think you should know, because I imagine that many of you are looking at very many programs and different programs at that. So one of the things that I think is really important to know about our program is that we are now 20 years old, and we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. And so that really speaks to the longevity of our program, but also to the reputation of the program. I have no qualms in saying that our program is one of the very best in the country. I would say at least one of the top 10 programs in the country. So if you're looking at us, hopefully you have a sense of the excellence that that we have in our program. And one of the main reasons for that excellence has to do with our faculty. Our faculty, if you've been to our website and look at the faculty page, currently we have 18 faculty members who, as you probably saw, are really accomplished writers. And they're also here not only because of that, but also because they're really proven excellent teachers. Many of them are coming from wonderful schools where they have their day jobs. And I'll talk a little bit more about the faculty when we get to that page. Another distinction that I really want to highlight about our program is the 3-year structure that we have, which I know that if you've been doing your homework, you can probably tell is a very big difference from a lot of programs which are on a 2-year semester-based structure. Ours is really amenable to sort of like, just how hard it is to be going to school while also be living your life and having obligations that you might have already. So the way we have it set up is that you only have to come to campus one time a year during the summer in July. So we have a 10-day residency in the summer. And then the rest of the year, you are working one-on-one with a faculty member. A lot of other programs, you have to go to campus twice a year, and you're working with a mentor on a semester-long sort of mentorship. But ours is really amenable to just the way lives are complicated and busy. And so our 3-year structure, I think, is a really big asset for our program. Another thing that we offer is something called an outside experience, which a student completes during their second year in the program. And I'll speak a little bit more about that later on. And then we also offer monthly flash classes. And these are faculty members who are offering 90-minute classes on very specific craft topics. And people, our students and our faculty Zoom into those. And so it's a nice way for people to gather once a month in the program. The last thing I'll just mention is that we have a really passionate community in our program and a really engaged alumni base. So we have, close to 400 alums in our program now, and people are really proud of the program and do what they can to support the program. And once again, I'll speak a little bit more about that down the road in the presentation. All right, so those are just some program highlights that I wanted to make you aware of. So let's move into some more detail about the program itself. So as many of you know, we have 3 concentrations in the program: fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. And even though primarily our faculty and our student writers focus on these genres in a literary way, we have students who are working also in popular genres that include sci-fi and even romance. So we, I know that the kind of the boundaries between popular and literary genres really are they're getting more porous. And so that is true in our program as well, where the literary and the popular are not really being policed, but rather being seen as opportunities for our writers. So our faculty are very much in that sort of like that zone of in between. And so are many of our students. But fiction, nonfiction, and poetry are the primary genres that we concentrate on. It's important to notice that many of our faculty work and publish in more than just one genre. So we have faculty members who usually work in poetry and creative nonfiction, or poetry and fiction. So if you're somebody who doesn't just do one genre, you do a number of them. This is a place that really celebrates that, and we encourage it because we know that creativity is not something that can be sort of like caged by genre. And we understand that if you're working in one genre and also working in another one, those are really kind of nourishing each other. Those kinds of the work in the two different genres are helping the others. And I will say that for the thesis that you produce in your third year, and this is highlighting our celebration of multi-genre, you can submit a thesis that is in more than one genre. So that's our really kind of like important way for us to highlight the fact that we care about students and writers who work in more than just one thing. Lastly, I'll say that during the residency itself, when you take classes during the residency, you're not tracked in any one genre or required to take only classes in your genre. If you're somebody who works, let's say, in fiction, but during the residency, you get really interested in taking, let's say, poetry, you're free to do that. And you get to sort of curate for yourself for the residency, the different kinds of classes that you take. And we don't police the choices that you make there. As I mentioned earlier, our faculty really are the bedrock of how good our program is. And I just wanted to list on this slide who our faculty are. And hopefully you recognize some of these names because they're really prominent writers that we have in our program. And it's important to notice that many of these writers, they're really passionate teachers. And one sort of like way of talking about that is that they have jobs at other schools, which are their primary jobs, but they love teaching so much and they love this community so much that they spend additional time and labor being part of this program and this community. Jeffrey Davis, for example, his primary job is at the MFA program at the University of Arkansas. Oliver De La Paz is a poet who teaches at Holy Names College in the Boston area. Jenny Johnson teaches in West Virginia. April Lawson, who is a fiction and nonfiction writer, her day job is at Clemson University. Let's see, Scott Nadelson, he's a fiction, nonfiction writer who works for us. He is also a professor at Willamette College in Oregon. Sequoia Nagamatsu, who's a terrific fiction and nonfiction writer, he also works at St. Olaf's College in Minnesota. And Renee Sims teaches at the University of Puget Sound. And Brian Tier also teaches at the University of Virginia in their MFA program. So these are writers who have very strong reputations in the literary world, but also very strong academic and teaching experience, as you can tell from the kinds of jobs that they have. It's also important to notice that all of these writers are really high achieving in terms of their publishing. In 2024, we had 7 of these faculty members publish books. And in 2025, at least 2 of these faculty members are publishing books. So these are teachers and writers who are actively, building reputations and doing good work out in the literary world. So that's just a slide that highlights who you might be working with if you do join the program. Okay, let me talk a little bit about what the mentorships are about. So The program, when you're in the program, you come to campus for 4 residencies, 4 summer residencies, and then you engage in 3-year-long mentorships during a 9-month academic year. And so you will be working over those 3 years with 3 different faculty members, 1 per year. And I know that many of you are wondering, how does that pairing process happen? And I can tell you that the student has an incredible amount of agency in who they work with in the program. During the summer residency, each student fills out a form, which is a preference form, that asks them to describe what their projects are for the coming year and who they would like to work with. And based on the form that each student fills out, I and the faculty then make decisions about who that student will work with during the year. So you have a lot of say in who you will be working with. And as I said, the mentorship lasts for 9 months from September through May. And it's important to say that we don't have a set curriculum in the program for each student. Everything is absolutely customized and tailored towards who you are, what your capabilities are, what your goals are, and what your projects are as a writer. So imagine that we have, 5 new poets in the program that enter at the same time. Those 5 poets are coming from very different sort of like places and backgrounds and levels. And so there is no one curriculum that would satisfy them or be pedagogically, viable. So every student working collaboratively with their faculty member, their mentor, will decide on the readings and the assignments and the projects that they might work on with their mentor. And I will just say that if you're a first-year student, which you would be if you're joining us this summer, you would be submitting to your mentor 7 work packets over the course of 9 months. And we usually ask students to devote from 20 to 25 hours per week on their packets. And you might ask, what does a packet entail? Well, as noted here, a packet usually requires a student to read the equivalent of 3 books, and a student has to write what are called critical response papers to those readings. So let's say that you read a book of poetry by Sharon Olds. You will write a critical response paper of, let's say, 3 to 5 pages about some aspect of that book or a poem in that book or a couple of poems. And so you will submit critical response papers in your packet along with your creative work. If you're a student, that might be, let's say, 5 to 6 poems per packet. If you're a prose writer, it really depends on the faculty member that you're working with in terms of the number of pages that you submit, but there's a lot of flexibility there that you'll negotiate with your faculty member. In terms of the feedback, once you submit your packet, the faculty member will go in and write their commentary, and then there is usually a follow-up Zoom meeting or phone call with that faculty member. I'm mentoring a student right now, and this is the structure that I follow with them. And I have a 2-hour Zoom call with them after every packet, after I have given them back my responses. So this is a little bit of an overview of what the mentorship experience is like. So here again, I'm going to stop for a moment and ask to see if you have any questions about either the faculty or the mentorships at this point.
So I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, creative work. So how is, I understand the 3 readings and the critical response papers, that's pretty clear, but how is the creative work? Is it assigned? Is it something you generate with a mentor? Something you've been working on? How does that evolve?
It really depends. So let's imagine that you're a fiction writer and you've been working on a novel, when you apply to the program, and the novel is something that you're really involved with. And so you, in discussion with your mentor, you will decide that, okay, you are going to send parts of your novel that you've already written to your mentor, and then you're going to work on that together. On the other hand, the mentor might also decide, after having seen maybe a sample of the work that you've done so far, they might suggest that, oh, I have some assignments for creative work that I want you to do because there are particular craft elements that you might exercise or practice outside of the novel that you are working on. So I guess I'm saying that, all of this is really up to negotiation and collaboration with your mentor. There are people who show up with already kind of like strong ideas about what they want to work on. And then there are people who show up who just want to improve at the skill level, and they don't mind being given assignments or prompts by their mentors. So it really depends. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. Other questions you might have about the mentoring experience, because I know this is the heart of the your time in the program are these mentorship experience. So I'm imagine you might have questions about that.
Do people ever not get along with their mentor?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? A mentorship is a relationship, and so and it lasts a whole year. And so, people have to work on relationships, and they have to do that in the mentorships as well. What I can tell you is this: every faculty member that we have is here because they are a really terrific teacher and they want to teach the students in this program. They're not getting paid enough to be here, and they're not here for that. They're here because they love teaching and they love this community. So they're going to show up and do a really good job. But a relationship has to be built over the course of time. So, initially students and mentors are getting to know each other and their styles and their personalities. But as the mentorship goes forward, there should be strong communication, strong care, strong support happening between those two people. And anything that is a question that hopefully gets ironed out. I, as a program director and as a faculty advisor for all of the students, I'm always available to step in as needed to, help support and maybe, improve that mentorships as they are ongoing. But, I would have no qualms in saying that all of our mentorships are successful because we have good teachers and we have a process for having good mentorship relationships between students and mentors. Yeah,
I have
what's
a
up?
quick I have a quick question about the packets. You mentioned there are
Mhm.
7 work packets. Is that basically how does that work with the 9 months? With the
Well,
mentor and I guess maybe this may go with it, Rick, is does the
yeah,
residency spill into the mentorships? Does it connect at all?
no. So,
Okay.
so if you are going to start the program, you officially join the program on June 1st, and the residency itself is in July, the early part of July. And in that month or so before the residency happens in June, you will be doing a lot of prep work for the residency itself. You're going to be reading workshop manuscripts from other people. You'll be reading advanced reading that the faculty have assigned for the classes that they're teaching. Once you're at the residency in July, you're assigned with your mentor, or you're assigned to a mentor. Your work together with the mentor doesn't begin until September 1st
Oh, okay.
into the end of May. And the assumption is that, between the residency and September 1st, you'll start to work on things that you will submit in, let's say, your September packet with the mentor. In terms of figuring out how 7 packets are scheduled over 9 months, that's really between you and the mentor. There's a lot of flexibility there. Most teams, most mentorship teams take December off for the holidays, and then they distribute it on either side. It's also important that there might be life things happening with you that force you to adjust the schedule as you're moving ahead with the mentor. And that's what the 9 month mentorship really affords. Imagine, if you're in a semester-based program, you have a packet due every 3 weeks or so, and there's very little flexibility there in terms of schedule. So our program really is very forgiving to that kind of, stuff happens. We've had people in the program who were having babies in the middle of a year, and so the program or the mentor gave them, let's say, a couple of months off during that period, and then adjusted the exchanges around that. So it is possible to have sort of like big things happening in your life while also doing the program.
My question is about the size of the cohort that begins each year, and then the size of the program overall. I understand you have 18 faculty. What's the
Right.
ratio of faculty to student?
That's a great question. So we don't have a quota for our incoming cohorts, but we always aim for some cohort between 12 to 15 per year, and that's for all of the genres. We're pretty competitive, and so it can be different in terms of genres. The genre spread can be different from year to year. So some years we might have, let's say, 4 or 5 poets coming in, and then another year we might just have 2. It really depends on what we think the quality mix will be for each genre. Right now, I think we have a total student body of about 38. In terms of the ratio between students and mentors, I will tell you this: our faculty members are not required to mentor a set number of students per year. Some faculty members prefer mentoring just 1 student a year. Others mentor 3 or 4, depending on what their workload is at the other places that they are teaching. So they're not burdened by this work. This is work that they want to do, and it's additional to the work that they do at their other jobs. Yeah, so you might just be working with a mentor and you're their only student that year. Or you might be with a cluster of students from 2 to 3 working with that mentor.
I was just wondering how much turnover there is in the faculty, whether whether say the faculty members that we see listed on the website are likely to still be there, and whether the people that will be working with will have
Yes.
been with the program for a while and be really familiar with it, or whether they are rotated in.
Yes. No, I am all about the faculty staying and being loyal, and also learning the culture and sort of like the strength of the community of the program. So I can just tell you right now that Kelly Russell Agadon, I've got the faculty listed here. Kelly Russell Agadon is now in her, I believe, 6th year in the program, teaching in the program. Barry Jean Borich has been in the program for she was my first hire. So she's been here for 10 or so years as a faculty member. Wendy Call has been here for 5 or 6 years. Jeffrey Davis was, I believe, one of my very first hires. So he's been here for nearly 10 years. Oliver De La Paz, the same, about 10 years. Jennifer Forster, about 10 years. Torn Greathouse, I would say about 5 or 6 years. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that all of these people they love this place and they love being a part of it, and they stay. Brenda Miller is our oldest faculty member in that she was first hired by the founders of the program, Judith Kitchen and Stan Rubin, 20 years ago. So Brenda has been around for 20 years, although Brenda is now moving into a kind of phased retirement in the program. Our youngest faculty member in terms of how long they've been here is Aram Marjoyan, who started the program, teaching for the program last summer. And so this will be his 2nd year in the program. Aram is a terrific editor. He is currently the editor of The Rumpus, and he's got a novel coming out with Harper this summer. So, he's an up and coming writer who we are really excited about. So I hope that makes sense in terms of, people come and they stay. These are great questions, by the way.
So I was also wondering if there are any ways that that the students stay in touch with each other. Are there any kind of formal structures for the students to interact among themselves between the residencies?
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Let me jump to the residency thing, and then I will keep in mind your question, because I think it's related to what I'm about to talk about here. Okay. So as I said, every student has to be on campus for 10 days during the year, and that happens in July. And many of you, I believe, have gotten maybe a sample residency schedule from me, or you can even find one on our website, which gives you the schedule for last summer. But as you can see from that schedule, each day of the residency is packed from basically 8 in the morning until 9 at night. And there are lectures, workshops, craft classes, and evening readings by faculty and guests during the residency. During the residency, we also offer pedagogy sessions for students who are interested in teaching creative writing. And then we also have a cluster of classes that are geared towards the graduating cohort that give them information about how to think about their lives beyond the MFA. So that's sort of the academic part of the residency. In terms of sort of the living experience, all the students live in a dorm called Harstad, and you are given an individual room there, but you are sharing bathrooms with other people on your floor. And all of your meals are included with the residency fee that you pay, and that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then, I will just say that the PLU campus during the summertime is really pretty. It's a quaint old campus, and it's a lovely place to be at during the summer. Maybe to go back to the point about what happens after the residency. So the 10-day residency is like this amazing, like, I don't know, it's like a nerd camp for people who love writing. And the cohorts and the students really, really bond among the faculty and among each other as well. And though the program doesn't have a set structure for how students can communicate with each other or stay in touch with each other, the cohorts take care of that. I know that every cohort has a very strong digital online community. Many of them meet every few weeks, if not once a month. They use WhatsApp, and they're communicating with each other, some of them even daily. So but it's really about each cohort making a community for themselves, knowing that, once they're away from campus, they're going to need that kind of support from each other. And I know many of them meet also for workshopping with each other, that they organize themselves. So the program doesn't have these things set up, but the students really hunger for it, and they make it for themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, we also offer these flash classes, which is just another opportunity that the program provides for students and faculty to meet once a month. And maybe it's also important to mention that, the communal aspect of the program really has to do with students and what they want out of that. There are some students who are maybe more solitary and, go through the residency experience and the mentorship experience, and they're not necessarily wanting to be involved with sort of cohort activities. But many students do, because I think that a lot of them come to a program like this really craving more community. And I think our program is really good at that. The students bond really well. I'll just say a few things about the outside experience, which is this requirement that students have to do in their second year of the program. And the outside experience is a kind of self-determined, self-generated activity or initiative that a student generates for themselves and it's meant to enhance their writing life or a specific project that they're working on. And this is just sort of an overview of some of the things that students have done to fulfill their outside experience, which requires, I believe, 100 hours of commitment. And some of them have gone to writing residencies or retreats at places like the Anderson Center in Minnesota, where we have a relationship and a collaboration with them, or to Hawthornden Castle in Scotland. We don't have a direct relationship with them, but students have applied there and have gotten in. The Flying Squirrel Studio, which is on the peninsula here in Washington, and the O'Reilly Residency, which is based in Idaho. So these are outside experiences for students who just want time away from where they are to do reading and writing and reflection. And then there are outside experiences that are a lot more, let's say, active and labor intensive. So we have students who are doing internships Or we had a student who recently did a program in chaplaincy, because that was really key to not just sort of like their life growth, but also in a project that they were doing. And then, other students have started things literally, like a literary magazine or a reading series in their communities back home. And then other things that they've done, they've immersed themselves in language study. They've participated in planning festivals, literary festivals where they are, or they've generated workshops in sort of underserved communities where they are, or they will participate in writing conferences. We've had a lot of students who have been accepted into the Bread Loaf Summer Writers Conference in Vermont, and that has helped to fulfill their outside experiences. So the outside experience is, meant to be an exciting kind of add-on to the work that you do as a student, and meant to deepen your life as a writer or a particular project that you might be doing. Let's say you're writing a novel that requires you to do research by traveling somewhere. That can count as your outside experience. So any questions here at this point?
There was one in the chat.
Yeah.
Question about residency. I live 15 minutes from campus. Would it be necessary for me to be on campus in the evenings during the residency periods?
No, I mean, so there are academic parts of the residency that you are required to go to during the day. But most sort of the academic activities end at around 5 o'clock. And then there's dinner, and then there's an evening reading. So those parts of it are, up to you. But I will say that if you are admitted to the program, you are required to pay for board and lodging. That's part of the kind of the cohort fee. So even if you live locally, you will be given a room, and you will have your board paid for. So, some students sort of do a half and a half, where they might go home for part of the residency, but many of them do have committed spaces and food here during the residency itself. It's a good question. As I had mentioned before, we are really one of the very best programs in the country. We have several hundred alumni now from all over the country. And I should say, by the way, that we are a national program. More than half the students that are more than half the students who are in the program have to fly into SeaTac to come to the residency. So our reach is national. And so if you are a student in the program, you are not somebody who's not necessarily from the Washington State region. You are in community with people from all over the country. That's the same thing with our faculty. I'm the only faculty member who is based in the Puget Sound region. All of our faculty have to travel to the residency and to campus. And I will say that the quality of the students that we attract and produce in the program are evidenced by just the great successes that our students have had, especially recently. And I just wanted to highlight 5 students who are names that, hopefully you're familiar with or will get familiar with. Matt Young is a terrific nonfiction and fiction writer who has a strong background in the military, and he's become a really powerful writer in describing experiences in the military. So his recent novel got published by Bloomsbury last year. It's called End of Active Service. And in fact, Matt is such a terrific writer and teacher that I invited him to join the faculty a couple of years ago. Jasmine Mendez is another terrific writer who's based in Houston, who writes poetry, nonfiction, and also YA literature. And so she's somebody who has a very big following in YA. I'm really excited to mention here Lina Tufaha. For those of you who might know about poetry, last year, Lina and her book, Something About Living, won the poetry category of the National Book Award. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment for anybody. And we're especially proud that Lina, who graduated from our program in 2018, won the National Book Award for this book. And then Jen Soriano is a Seattle-based writer who published this amazing book of nonfiction about intergenerational trauma. called Nervous. It was published by Harper Amistad. And a very recent grad, Preeti Parikh, her book of poetry is going to be published by Tupelo Press, I believe in the next year or so. So this is just a sampling of some of the really prominent alumni just of late. But we have many alums who have published many books at this point. And it's a testament, I think, to the kind of rigor and the great support that a student gets in our program.
I had a question. Is it a 60 credit hour program?
Oh my gosh, Alex, do you know?
I checked our website. It says it's 44 credits.
Is it 44? Okay. That's such a great question and also a funny question, because I think in terms of like mentorship years and residencies, I don't think in credits, but 44 sounds right. I am wondering, to the person who asked whether it's 60, is there a specific sort of like reason why that number is important?
Now, I've just noticed in the programs I've looked at that some are 48 and some are 60. And I'm trying to figure out what that means, or if it means anything at all. So I just didn't see that anywhere on your program.
Yeah, I don't know
student
that
website.
yeah, I don't know that it means anything. I
Okay.
think what's important for you to remember is that you're having 3-year-long mentorships and 4 residency experiences. So, we've been doing it the way we've been doing it for 20 years, and we have not been rated by the accreditation police yet. So I think our 44
Yeah.
is good. Any other questions at this point?
Yes, another in the chat. What are the opportunities to connect with agents and editors and learn about the practical side of being a writer?
Well, there are a couple of things that we do in that regard. One is that during the residency, we will invite literary professionals to come in and interact with students. And so that's one way that you can kind of like interact with those people and get to know a little bit more about that. Another is through your faculty mentor. So if you're somebody who's really interested in things like publishing or finding out more about how the literary world works, that it can be a discussion sort of motif that you generate with your mentor. As I said, many of our mentors are actively, ambitiously publishing writers, and therefore getting their sort of help and their mentoring on that professional side of things is really something that you can also ask for in the course of being mentored by them in regards to craft. So those are some of the ways that you would be able to kind of learn about those things in the program. I will say though, that the emphasis of the program really is on the craft. All the students that we invite into the program come in with very different ambitions. We will have students who are really eager to publish their work and build a professional profile, but we also have a segment of students who really don't care about that. They're here to improve their skills. It's a kind of a soul-enhancing, life-enhancing experience for them rather than a kind of a professional one. And then there are students who are sort of in between that spectrum. And I will say that one of the great things about our program is that we respect and deeply support all of those ambitions. We don't have a set idea of what success looks like in our program. And we really kind of look at each student and what they want to accomplish for themselves, and we help them and support that. So, I can connect any of you if you're interested to current students who you can ask questions, and they will, I think, affirm what I've just said, that it's a really supportive, non-competitive program. And that's because, there isn't a sense that there's a hierarchy of success among the students. Any other questions at this point?
Yeah, just to latch on to that phrase, non-competitive.
Yeah.
One of the questions I came in with today is I recently learned about another MFA program that talks about how they don't follow a critique model based on the Iowa Writers Workshop, that they're more focused on compassionate critique models. And I'm curious what the basis is for critique models in this program.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. A lot of our faculty members at their home institutions are really at the cutting edge of workshop models that are really based in, an ethical way of handling workshops and communities of workshopping. And so I can tell you that that is a really a big point of, I think, pride for us, that care is the primary sort of like objective in the workshops that we have during the residency itself. I don't want to, undercut, though, the notion that we're not rigorous, because we are rigorous. But there's a great deal of sensitivity and care that goes into the rigor that we practice as a program, including the workshops that we have. If you go to rwwsoundings.com, there are a number of features there that talk about the pedagogy, especially the workshop pedagogy of our faculty. And I think you can see there that the faculty are really invested in pedagogies of care in the program, including the workshopping. So I will mention, though, that the way that we think about workshopping is that every faculty member has their own philosophy and practice. And instead of turning that into kind of a hot mess for the students who are being workshopped by many different kinds of faculty members, we ask that at the start of every workshop, a faculty member, before they facilitate the workshop, provides a kind of a thoughtful overview about, their philosophy, their objectives, and their sort of like practical structures for workshopping. And so every time a student encounters a workshop experience, a faculty member is thoughtfully kind of telling them what they're about to do and what the expectations are. And this allows the students to kind of like move through these different workshop models and get a sense of, oh, these are the different ways that things are being done by different people. What are the values that matter to me as a student, and perhaps as an eventual workshop facilitator myself. So workshop is really something that is both transparent and rich at the same time in the program.
I put a hand up because I don't know, this is just a funny, quirky thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I was attracted to about this particular MFA is that it's called the Rainier Writing Program.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, to me, that reflects a tone of the program and the culture of a program, and it sets it apart from maybe other MFAs. So I was just curious why it's called a program.
Well, it's so we are the low residency MFA program based at Pacific Lutheran University. But when the program was founded by Judith Kitchen and Stan Rubin in 2004, they decided to give it sort of like a brand name, which was the Rainier Writing Workshop. And I think that had to do with the fact that the campus is, the PLU campus, I believe, is about 40 miles away from Mount Rainier. And in fact, you can see Mount Rainier from where we are. So, just sort of acknowledging the place where we are at and the region that we are a part of. So I think that's how the name came. So just some kind of maybe some logistical things that you might want to have highlighted. So we do have an early deadline of December 1st, and we're coming up on our spring deadline, which is February 1st. However, we do have rolling admissions in the program. And for the start date of June 1st, and if previous years have been, kind of like indicative of this, we are reading applications into April. So if you're interested in joining the program, don't necessarily fixate on that February 1st deadline. You can submit an application after that deadline. And I will talk about the application components that are important to us. The writing sample obviously is, the main part of representing who you are. So just submit work that you think is the best in whatever genre or genres you think represent your best, most talented writing. And the personal statement is also incredibly important to us because we want to know what your story is and what has led you to applying to a program like ours and what you want to do in a program like ours. So, treat that statement really carefully and seriously. And in the critical writing sample, I will just say that that is a 500 to 1,000 word just sort of essay on something that you like, a piece of writing that you like, whether it's a poem, a story, or an essay, and looking at that piece of writing through the lens of craft or a writerly sort of point of view, as opposed to just sort of like a literary critical point of view. So, that's something that hopefully isn't too onerous for you when you're writing. Just write about something you love, asking yourself, how did this writer make this thing? What are the craft elements that make this piece of writing as powerful as it is? Finally, I will say that I'm really glad that we have only optional recommendation letters, because I know that many of our students who are thinking about applying to our program, they don't necessarily have backgrounds in creative writing or in academia, and therefore they don't have easy access to people who might be able to write them recommendation letters in that way. So the recommendation letters are optional for us, and I think that's really important for us in terms of equity. So these are some of the application details. And this is just a slide that has some of the costs information. And I know that, this is also on the website. Any questions about this slide?
Not a question about the cost slide, but what is the median age of students?
Oh, that's a great question. As of right now, the youngest student that we have in the program is in their mid-20s. The oldest student that we have is in their early 70s, and everybody in between. And so I would say that the majority of our students are in their 30s and 40s. And as I said earlier, coming from all over the country. So I will say that I love this program. I've been running it for 10 years, and I love talking about this program. So if you have any follow-up questions for me, please feel free to email me at this email address. And I'm happy to answer questions via email or setting up a one-on-one through phone or through Zoom. So, and this is the season for me to be doing a lot of conversation with people who are interested in the program. And I'm happy to talk to you about any questions you might have about, frankly, this program, but also about the whole low-res MFA scenario. Before I started directing this program 10 years ago, I was on the poetry faculty for 10 years at another program. And so I feel like I know the scene pretty well. And one of my sort of important kind of like values is to steer people towards the program that they should be at, even if that's not ours, because I really love writers and I want writers to thrive. And so if in the course of conversation, I advise you to maybe look at other programs, that to me is a really kind of like good service that I can provide. So I'm happy to talk to you about the questions you might have about the MFA in general, in addition to any questions you might have about our program in particular. Because, I also want people to end up in our program who ought to be here and who want to be here. So I'm open for you to contact me. So any questions at this point before we adjourn?
Can I ask a quick question? Thank you for that very kind, thoughtful, and compassionate comment about trying to find, the best programs for, a student. And I've been taking middle age, I've been taking graduate classes, writing classes, and I'm like, I need to find a poetry track that's a little more poetry for me and less creative nonfiction, but I still love creative nonfiction. But anyway, I've been running up against exactly what you were just saying. You get a bird's eye view of a program. There's nothing really close to me. So I feel like I'm gonna be traveling anywhere. Is there any, can you speak just for a minute to those of us that are maybe in the same boat of how to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges, apples to oranges when we're looking at an program?
That's a really good question. First of all, I want to point you to a resource that's really valuable, which is Poets and Writers. Poets and Writers has a really good database of the many, many different low residency programs that are out there. And when this program started, I'll just be honest with you, when our program started 20 years ago, there were fewer than 20 low residency MFA programs, and now there are over 70. So for you as a consumer, you have a lot of choice. And, part of your job when you decide which programs to apply to is really looking at the different choices that you have and, eventually settling on the programs that you feel are best for you, both from a kind of pedagogical standpoint and also from the other considerations that might be important: location, money, structure. I think that, as I started the presentation with some of the, I think, highlight distinctions about our program. And I think it's important to really remember some of these things that I pointed out at the beginning. First of all, our longevity. We've been around for a long time and we have a great reputation. And also this 3-year structure. The majority of programs that you will encounter are 2 years and semester based, which makes the experience, I will say, very fast paced and a little bit punishing. So our program is sort of created almost as a kind of an antidote to that kind of pace by requiring you to be on campus only once a year for 10 days and having a longer mentorship relationship with your faculty mentor. So I think that's a really kind of important distinction that we have in terms of the experience that you have in our program. So, I would say just lastly that as you're looking at different programs, first of all, reflect on what are priorities for you. Like what kind of pacing or speed do you want? Maybe there are things that you care about in terms of the living experience of being in a residency, or also the faculty that you want to be working with. Because, these people are basically wiring your brain as a writer. And so who do you want, messing around in your wiring as a writer? So come up with your own list of priorities and then begin to see, what are the programs that are resonating with you in terms of the values that you think are important. I hope that made sense.
Yes, thank you. That was perfect. I've heard a lot of advice about looking for a program where you may resonate with the faculty member's work. And then I guess you would hope to get that faculty member, so, but I also understand the creative processes. We're creating our own work, and it may or may not fit into someone else's, a box that someone else may have. So
I
that's
understand.
what I'm looking for, is that creativity aspect of having something to model and then taking it and running with it.
Yeah. Keep in mind too that, just because a faculty member that you think of as a certain kind of writer, or you love their work for a particular kind of way that, a style that they do, many, certainly our faculty members, they're great teachers. They can mentor students who are doing things that are wildly different from what they write themselves. So that to me is a mark of a good teacher, that they care for the student in front of them as opposed to just trying to get them to write the way they write. So that maybe that's something that you can ask about the faculty members that you might want to work with. Are they good teachers? That's really important. I'm just really grateful that you all showed up today. Thank you so much. And if you do have follow-up questions that you want to take up with me, just email me and I'll be happy to respond that way or set up an appointment to chat with you further. But thank you so much for looking at RWW, and good luck with your own writing. You're here because you're a writer, and so hopefully your poems or your stories or your essays are blossoming where you are. So I'm sending all of my good vibes in your direction for that. Thank you, everybody.